everyone. Today we have the new episode of Meet the Interesting Azerbaijani living in the UK, and I think I'm honored to have the one of the most interesting Azerbaijanis living in the UK, His Excellency Mr. Elin Suleymanov. Hi, Elin Bey. Thank you so much for attending.
Madam, good to see you.
And I think it's going to be really interesting for my audience and Azerbaijani audience to see and to know your insights about your journey and about the person who's living in the UK and also about the diplomatic career and the future.
Excellent.
So, Elin Bey, would like to ask you about you and about your life. How did you started your career in diplomacy?
That's a very good question. Thank you, Maryam. First of all, I want to congratulate you on your very successful video blog. I think it's very widely watched and very well received. Congratulations. That's a great success. Thank you. It's a personal success, but it's also, I think, reflects well on Azerbaijan. So thank you for your work. I am more, I would say, I'm kind of more posted to UK than live in UK. A life of a diplomat is more of a living in two spaces in a way. So we do live in UK physically, but we also very much live in Azerbaijan with our daily lives. When you ask this question, I have to look back. And I suddenly realized that it's been quite a long journey since 1998.
Oh.
When I first joined our embassy under leadership of Hafiz Pasha in Washington.
Wow.
And since then, we're mostly posted in Washington.
Yeah.
At our embassy there. Then as Consul General in Los Angeles, when we opened the first Consulate General in California. Beautiful place. Excellent memories. I think it's an amazingly rich culturally and beautiful in terms of nature location. And then later, again as ambassador in Washington before I was posted here in London. I think in many ways, for many of us at 1990s, there wasn't really a choice. Azerbaijan needed people. We needed to help the country. It's not like today when you have quite a large number of qualified young Azerbaijanis, qualified people. At that time, there were not that many of us. So of course, after studying in the United States as a first Marsky Fellow, working in the Czech Republic in a private company, I came back to Azerbaijan, worked for UN High Commissioner for Refugees. It was very fulfilling because we helped the internally displaced persons in Azerbaijan, which were displaced as a result of the First Karabakh War. Then, of course, the work of UNHCR has changed dramatically. For a long time, it hasn't been doing the same thing in Azerbaijan. But at the time, it was quite helpful. But I realized that we were not really helping to solve the problem. We were just putting band-aids. So I was graciously invited to join the Foreign Service and was posted to Washington.
Oh, that's impressive, and I think not many people probably get the chance to experience such a interesting and rich career. And I think it's also possibly been different influences of different cultures. You've been, obviously on a mission all the time representing Azerbaijan, but I guess it's also affected who you are today in a sense of getting all the knowing different people and the cultures and the traditions. How did it affected you as a person?
Madam, you are very lucky, and as so many of our young members of our young generation are very lucky because they were born into independent Azerbaijan, or they were born at the moment when Azerbaijan was emerging as independent state. I represent in a way the last Soviet generation. I was born in the Soviet Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan was born just before my eyes. All these protests in late 1980s, the tragedy of the First Karabakh War, when I was a student in Moscow, the breakup of the Soviet Union. When you go to Moscow as a Soviet citizen and the Soviet Union collapses and you're there. So already then you begin to represent who you are, you begin to represent Azerbaijan. And not only Azerbaijan as a country, your own identity emerges with this. So I think, in a way, my personal journey follows the journey of our society and the country as well, Indonesia. So of course we've been all influenced by all the cultures we've been to. I'm deeply grateful to all my friends in the United States, in Czech Republic, here in UK, and in other places where you learn a lot, where you see people, when you observe the good things, but you never forget who you are, because then you begin to appreciate things that maybe you take for granted back home.
Exactly. I think I completely agree, because that's what I experienced as well. And yeah, we have some guests. So that I also started to realize that we take lots of things for granted, and we should never forget where we're coming from, because the place we're coming home is incomparable. And I think we have such a rich culture, people, and the reunion of people. Like, we have the culture of bringing people together, and I think when our people together, they're nothing better than that. I think all we can, in my personal opinion, all we can give to the world is our unity. And
You're absolutely right. Azerbaijan is a gathering place.
yeah,
Azerbaijan is very unique. Maybe it's a function. I mean, I'm biased here. I am a graduate of a geography department of Moscow State University, so I tend to think in geographic terms. If you look at geography, maybe that's what became our destiny. In a way, geography is your destiny. But not only geography. I mean, that by itself doesn't solve anything. But Azerbaijan is a very unique culture. You're absolutely right. I mean, if you ask me to describe it, people often ask us to describe what Azerbaijan is. It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible to describe exactly what Azerbaijan is. Not only because it's a very complex and rich culture, and it's very all-encompassing, but also because it's moving, it's dynamic, it changes. And it changes with time, it changes with generations. It also remains quite stable and solid in many dimensions, but it's also very dynamic. So for me, it's a fascinating place, not just because it's my homeland, but because sometimes you look at it from the outside and you can't stop being amazed how interesting it is, actually, both from inside and outside.
exactly. I think it's unique and authentic, and I don't think it's even comparable to anything. When people ask me, "What would you give an example? How does Azerbaijan looks like compared to something?" I'm like, I can't. It's so authentic and unique that you can just only feel and experience. And I think that's like what I'm trying to invite the youth to do, to always to showcase our roots. And my next question is actually gonna be about that, because you've told me about your journey and about how you felt in your career and personal journey. What would you recommend to use? Like, how we can continue embracing this, embracing and sharing this authenticity, and bringing people together in Azerbaijan and outside of Azerbaijan as young representatives?
I think the key is to find the balance between maintaining your own authenticity, your connection to Azerbaijan, being very proud of who you are, at the same time learning from the others, because I mean there's always something to learn from others. I mean, and others have something to learn from us. That's normal. And absorbing some good things, and yet never getting lost yourself. That's not an easy balance. I mean, it's a challenge for any culture. It's especially challenging when your culture is so diverse, so inclusive, so multifaceted, and we can do that. We can do that, and I'm very proud of our young folks who seem to be doing quite well. Exactly that. They're doing very well. I mean, you yourself are one example.
Cute.
There are others. We could be very proud of them. But generally speaking, I would say find something which binds you to Azerbaijan very much, which keeps reminding you. I mean, it could be something small. I mean, of course, I'm not talking about a big cultural thing. We all have that, but something personal and small, which keeps you always connected. I'll tell you a couple of things which are, for me, for instance, it mattered for me when I moved to study in Moscow. It was not very far, It was still formerly the same country, the Soviet Union. But it was far from Baku. I was by myself, I was quite young, and I was not used to living away from my family. I was not used to living away from Baku. So what did I keep to make me very connected? Were two things. One is I always carried with me a tea kettle, Chinese, to have tea, and a couple of almudi glass. They broke all the time, so I had to buy them again and again. But those were things which reminded me of home every day. So I would always drink every day. I would have make a tea, brew a tea in a loose leaf tea in Moscow, which was surprising for people. And then I would make it, and of course we would eat the sugar, which is not very healthy, by the way. So I don't recommend people to do this just for the anti-diabetic reasons. But that what connected me in a very simple physical, manual way to Baku. The other thing which also connected me was music, and I think this is the most. I think for me, I always say that the real language of Azerbaijan is music. The way most Azerbaijanis react to certain beat, to certain music, and I think that what kept me connected. And I always had this. You probably don't remember those, tapes. That had
I
this,
remember a bit.
the tape from with Azerbaijani music. It didn't. The sound was not as clear as it is now in digital recording, but that did keep the bridge going. So I think that was an important connection for me. But that's, of course, it's just one small example. There were other things, and for instance, later on, I remember I still have that flag at home. It was one of the first ever tricolor flags of Azerbaijan. It was not very well made. It was only one-sided. I don't know if it was fully correct. It was actually pure silk, but I found it very early in 1990s, and I think it was still. I don't know if it's still legal at the time to put it up or not. And I still carry it with me all the time because I think that's the first Azerbaijani flag I actually held in my hand, which was a real flag.
Wow, I think that must be such a unbelievable feelings because, you experienced the transition and you saw how Azerbaijan was building itself and what you felt as a young Azerbaijani during all this process of the transition of the country in the 90s.
Very proud, but also very worried because you want the country to succeed. You see this flag raised, and you want that flag to be there. You want your people to be successful, and it wasn't easy. People. I don't want people to discount the hardships the people of Azerbaijan have gone through. We talked about this, the Karabakh War, the displacement of our people, the January 20 tragedy, which actually made us all very proudly independent. Then, of course, the Hoja and other things, and 30 years of conflict, which are now thankfully over, thanks to the heroism of our people, heroism of our soldiers, and the leadership of President Ilham Aliyev.
Of course.
This is possible because of this. But before we got to that point, there was a lot of worry. We were not, there was a lot of hardship, and we should never discount that. We should not dwell on that too much because it should not become an obsession either. But it should become a warning and a lesson to every generation to leave the way so that doesn't happen again.
Exactly. And I also think the same, and I think now it's our time to do the best for it never happen again. And I think, as you mentioned on the 20th January, if Azerbaijan nations stays strong and united, nothing can beat us.
Exactly. And it's true. We need to be united, and we need to believe in our country. We need to believe in our flag. We need to believe in our people. We need to believe in our leadership because all those factors together make Azerbaijan unique. I think this is what makes this country special. And look, when you look at our region, Azerbaijan is a relatively small country in a very turbulent region, and yet, because of the leadership, because of the policies of President Ali, we now can live in a stable nation with victorious nation, but also in a place which develops very rapidly. and dynamically, and it is something that people need to appreciate. And that's why I think there's something, and we talked about this, Madam Kham, there's a certain responsibility for people who study or live outside Azerbaijan is to convey to our people inside the country how the success of Azerbaijan looks from the outside. Often people take it for granted, they don't fully appreciate how it looks. But when you look at the map and you look at Azerbaijan, you understand how unique it is. And it's important that folks in the country hear that, they understand this, and they hear it from not just officially, not from pronouncements, not from journalists, but from people who are actually from Azerbaijan and can share and compare that.
Exactly. And I think that's the main thing. And also, I would like to say that you are one of my embassy you and everyone who's working in Azerbaijan embassy in DK is big supporters. And I think that means a lot for me personally that you're supporting as yourself as the ambassador and the embassy and everyone, the youth, the ideas, because I think, as you said, it's not just the official announcement, it's not just the media, official media, but it's also all of us. We are representing a country,
Exactly.
and if in London we have a lot of Azerbaijan, there's cities where they're much less, and they're all individual ambassadors for themselves, cultural ambassadors.
Exactly. Maryam, first of all, thank you for your kind words. I think it's a duty and responsibility for everyone at the embassy, including myself, to be support to our young generation, but not only to young generation, to all our citizens. I mean, that's our job. Actually, that's a part of our job description. So we must do this, but we also do it with pleasure because I think that's perhaps the very enjoyable part of being a diplomat is that you serve your country by engaging your compatriots. I think that's important. And you're absolutely right. When in 1992, I was a Muskie Fellow in Toledo, Ohio, of all places. Great place in terms of learning about America. It's unique in some ways, and I'm very grateful to those people in Toledo who opened their doors of their homes for me and to stay there. They have never met anybody from Azerbaijan. Well, I would be very surprised if someone from Toledo in 1992 actually would have met someone from Azerbaijan. That would have been really surprising. I realized at that point that so much depends on an individual person. People would judge, maybe unfairly, let's be honest. They would shape their view of Azerbaijan, they would judge Azerbaijan by their impression of you personally. And that's natural, that's inescapable. That adds a certain responsibility to each and every one of us. Because we're not China, we're not Russia, we're not India or the United States, we're not France, there are not that many. I mean, there are many, but not that many Azerbaijanis around the world who come from Azerbaijan and who meet other people. So we have to understand that people would look at us. But I mean, even yourself, if you meet a person from a country you don't usually meet, that does shape your impression of a country, of a nation, of course, because you think, okay, that's one person from that place, I know that. So what do I think?
I agree with you, and I think that's a big responsibility for all of us. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, when you live in the country, you don't see sometimes things. But I think for us, as a people living abroad, is much more responsibility because we, as a one individual, we shape the entire impression. And for me, I hear the most of the times. I think Azerbaijan is really well known in the world, and for me, if someone doesn't know where Azerbaijan is or maybe heard and doesn't know much, I'm always happy to answer all the questions and say, because even if I have 5 minutes, I would spend 7 minutes, but to give the information, deliver my perspective, my country. But
Thank you. That's good.
I'm trying my best, and I feel like I hear a lot. And actually, this video, which my podcast got the whole attention from, that maybe I'm the first Azerbaijani you met, and I feel like I hear that quite a lot. And people are really aware about Azerbaijan. Like, we are hosting an amazing events. We sign under beautiful games, Olympics, then the football games, Grand Prix, and people heard so much about the country. And when they see this presence in the global media through this type of events, they actually go and research and check about the rest of the country, about the history, about the music, about the culture, traditions, and they get to know more. So I feel like the the responsibility on us is to represent the human factor. So we are the human factor for anyone who meets. So even when I was coming here today in a taxi and then I was speaking in Azerbaijani, and then the driver was like, "Is that Turkish?" I was like, "It's we can understand. It's similar, but we have our own language. We have our own like we have the alphabet. We don't copy anyone. Like it's a very unique in all senses. And for me, just the joy to explain to someone who've never heard much something new, and they always get surprised because there's much more to explore. So it's something completely new for them and is unknown sometimes.
Exactly. No, you're absolutely true. Although I do have to say that I do like being called Turkish because I just love the Turks. I think they're fascinating and cool
Yeah, of
people,
course.
and we have a great fraternal relationship. But you're right, Azerbaijan has a very distinct culture, and it's a very independent country, which is important. And whatever happened in the last decades have shown to us that being independent is a very important value.
It's very important, and I feel like even before when I do some interesting research about Azerbaijan, I find out lots of things. And also especially from the women's side, the way that Azerbaijan supports the women and females, how the girls, I think that's something that also Azerbaijan is getting to known for by supporting not just young everyone. I mean, I'm representing the young generation, but I feel like people get also surprised when they hear facts as the right to vote in 1918 been given in Azerbaijan.
I think this is very important. What you're saying, Mariam, from yourself, an example of a successful young Azerbaijani lady, and I think it's a very important dimension of Azerbaijani society to have equality and give the equal development to both genders, to both sexes, and that both women and men have equal rights. And this is fascinating. Of course, Azerbaijan has a illustrious history on this, from women giving women rights to vote before the United States and other countries, to women leaders and the pilots,
Yeah.
as you know, and others. And of course, today, the leadership of the first vice president, Mehriban Hanım Aliyev, shows by itself the important role women play, and in particular, women plays in Azerbaijani society. The speaker of Azerbaijani parliament is a lady, Dr. Saiba Gafar. There are many members of the of the Azerbaijani parliament who are ladies, and there are many others. I mean, for me, I think I've seen firsthand the importance of this. Both of my grandmothers were medical doctors. Think about this: they learned, but they were born very early on in the 20th century, when many other people were not educated, but they were both doctors. My mother is a physicist. She's a scientist, and at the age of 32, she was the youngest doctor of science in theoretical physics in the entire Soviet Union. Not youngest Azerbaijani lady, not in Azerbaijan, but in the entire Soviet Union. She was the youngest doctor of physics in theoretical physics, and I'm very proud of it.
Impressive.
So I think it's very important for us to make sure that the key to successful society is equality of people, and not just men and women. I think we talked about this as well, the inclusivity of the society, to be inclusive of all cultures, of all ethnic groups, of all religious groups. Or I think that's the key for Azerbaijan, and that's partly because where we are. We live in the Caucasus.
Yeah.
We live in a place where the world comes together. We live in a place where genders are equal. We live in a place where religions come and mix. So, yeah, that's how it should.
I 100% agree, and I think I'm so proud of us that we are such a accepted and well raised in this sense. And all the kids, like I see, like my younger siblings, how they are respectful to everyone. I also would like to share with you what like we do here. I think I'd like to speak about the connection between the UK and Azerbaijan. We try to bring Azerbaijanis together, and I will tell you a really funny episode. Last week we had a community meeting. It's not just for Azerbaijanis. I have my open community for strong-minded people. Some people we never seen each other, so they put Azerbaijani flag and we saw each other like that. Like basically, when I arrived today, it was in a park, and it was a sunny day, and we went for walk all together. And some people came with the flag on them. I was like, that's the best way to recognize somebody. Like I thought, how else she would recognize us? So I think. In the UK, we're trying, like I'm trying my best also, and other people who are living here, they're successful in different fields. And I think this certain series and the episodes are good to showcase obviously, unfortunately, we cannot show everyone, which we would like to, but interesting Azerbaijanis living here. So as yourself, what would you think are the bridging culture between UK and Azerbaijan?
First, I want to tell you, Madam, that I am I'm always fascinated and very proud of our community here. Our community, not only young folks, we told you it's inclusive, so we don't want to discriminate
Exactly.
by gender,
Sorry.
by religion, but
Everyone.
also by age. I tell you, we're very good. The folks, Azerbaijani folks here are amazing. I truly enjoy meeting and speaking and people who lived here for years or decades, who maintain this connection to Azerbaijan, who love Azerbaijan so dearly that for them it's a meaning of their lives. And we have to recognize it. Again, look, think you were born in independent Azerbaijan, and for you it's a reality. And imagine all these people who lived here and believed that one day Azerbaijan will be independent, and they watched it, and they suffered, and they cried, and then they saw that flag, and can you imagine? That it's fascinating for them. So we have to appreciate that. And now many of them are so inspired to see these young folks. I mean, we go to the universities. By the way, I have to say that appreciate the President's leadership, President Aliyev's leadership in establishing the study abroad program, where you have this state study abroad program brings hundreds of Azerbaijani young students here, not only here in different universities around the world, but quite a lot here. I think the largest number comes to UK, and you could see it, and you're so proud of these young folks. And recently we were at an event at Imperial College, and some of the students, they came from formerly displaced IDP families. So imagine they were displaced, and their families were displaced in early 1990s. The whole purpose of that was to break their spirit, and then they not only did they leave, not that they only succeeded, they succeeded here in UK. They came and became successful students in the top universities. I think that's fascinating. That is extremely positive, and that speaks so well of our people, of our nation, of our country. So I think we should put it out there first, and that's the most important thing. I spent quite a lot of time, more than 2 decades, more than 20 years in the United States. And it's a fascinating country. It's a great country. But I think culturally, of course, UK is closer to Azerbaijan. It's for many things. And I think there's this shared hospitality, as you said, shared love for education, a shared respect for families.
Yes.
I think that's important. And I'll tell you something which made me extremely happy the day I landed in London, and that is that UK has very good tea. Brewed tea. I mean, this is important. Not just a bag tea, but brewed tea. I think that makes me very happy, because that's the thing I missed quite a lot in the United States. And now here you could see that. Yeah, it's a small thing, but I told you that thing which kept me to my years in Moscow. So I see it here. It's very good. It's a small thing, but generally speaking, the food scene in UK is very good. It's very diverse. So diversity of society is also important here. It's diverse in different ways.
Yeah.
But appreciation of diversity, that people feel comfortable, I think that's very important.
I completely agree with you, and I think there are so many similarities as well that probably which makes the community living here really happy and engaging, because we really engage with the the people living in the UK, with British people, and not only. So, and about the tea, I think the culture of afternoon tea and some of our tea is quite similar in their own aspects. But obviously, I mean, I prefer Azerbaijani tea, but I think here they have a great selection.
They have good taste.
They have good
The
taste.
only thing they're missing is good Azerbaijani jam. That's what they're missing. A good Azerbaijani jam, it would be a very welcome addition to afternoon tea culture. I think.
I completely agree. I think at the end of the day, we
They,
have.
they were created for each other. I
Yeah.
still have, I'm trying to make that connection. I think the British afternoon tea and Azerbaijani jams, especially the fig or something, I think that would be excellent.
I agree, and I think what else like makes us feel your home, the hospitality. I think this is a really common characteristic between UK and Azerbaijan, that we're really warm and hospitable. So as any person who would come to Azerbaijan and then go back, they would always speak about the hospitality. Do you also feel that here? Does it
Yes,
seem like
it's a very hospitable place. I think it's a very welcoming place. Let me tell you something. Maybe I mean it's related to this. It's a little bit different in a way too. Is we're speaking tonight, if I may say, or we're just on the eve of the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan.
Yeah.
And so congratulations
yeah,
to,
to all?
to all of us. And you feel very comfortable during the month of Ramadan in UK.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows the culture. They're very accepting and they understand what it means.
Yeah.
They, you go to a restaurant, everybody understands what that you need a bit, you need a date, you need the water, everybody knows it. This is not something alien here. And I think this is that diversity, that inclusivity, even in such matter, I think is extremely kind.
Yeah.
And very inclusive in that. So I do feel that people find their place in UK. I would not say easily, that would not be true. It's not easy, but they can find their place in UK if they try, because it's possible.
I agree. I agree. And I hear the sense a lot the business going to be not so good during the Ramadan. If we can feel it here, this in UK, that means that there is also a big population that is fasting. And I mean, I think that's one of my favorite parts about the UK, that is accepting everyone and making appreciate and make everyone feel appreciated. So whoever you are, wherever you're from, we are all here together and we will respect each other. That's
And
the
I
part.
think that's very important, and it's a key element of any society to be successful. It's inclusivity, and just for practical reasons, why would you want to exclude someone who can contribute to your society? I mean that makes no sense.
Exactly. And also, you mentioned about earlier about the scholarships and about the study in the UK. I think I just also want to say thank you to the government for doing this, because I'm meeting so many people coming with this opportunity. And sometimes might be a misunderstanding that the only way to the UK is to cover your own expenses. But I think the program that the president offering to the students, not just always, as you said, in the UK, all across the globe, but this is something really possible. And I think if I meet 8 of 10 people I met from young, even not just any age, they've come through the scholarship program, or scholarship team, which is amazing. And I think this is something that if students want to study abroad, it's something that they can encourage.
Exactly, and I think they're beginning a new batch of applications now. Quite soon, the Minister of Education is doing that. But I think what you describe is a true reflection of leadership by President Aliyev. I tell you why. It's not just what happens today. You invest in the future of a country, and you invest into something. You invest in the people. I know long time ago, President Aliyev said, we need to turn black gold into human gold. And it's actually what's happening. I mean, I don't know if it's still the black gold which produces the funding for this, but it is an investment in the future of the country. It is making sure that, and that's how we got to our successes in many ways, is because Azerbaijani leadership doesn't think about just today. They think years ahead, and how will Azerbaijan succeed in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. I mean, that's important. And of course, the key for that is educated population, progressive society, and inclusivity. I think that's what we see.
Exactly. I completely agree. And I think thank you so much for supporting us and supporting for the government supporting because this it means a lot. And obviously now I'd like to move a bit to more cultural questions because I know that you have really great stories and it just I think the 1 hour interview won't be enough to fit it all. But I would like to ask what's most you miss about Azerbaijan, about your home country, hometown while you've been on this journey with diplomatic career?
In London, I'd say sun, although
So,
today we have a sunny
so
day, there's thank you. But generally speaking, sun is very much is what you miss about it. But honestly, of course, family and friends and people you grew up with. See, I mean, of course, my mother, my friends around me, and our family. Just being back home, Baku is such a fascinating place. I am from Baku. I was born there, and I just walking along the seaside on the boulevard or walking in the old town in Nishadi Shahar. I mean, that by itself is unbelievable. When I go back, I never have enough. I never have enough of this, walking around and seeing people and doing this. So of course, you miss it a lot. You miss it a lot when you also feel more connected to it, almost more connected to it when you're outside. I mean, I think that's part of living abroad is that you miss your place of birth so much that you feel more connected to it every time you come back.
yeah, and I think you even it's encouraged you to do much more than you actually plan to do. So that's in my case. And is there any favorite films that you like from maybe childhood or maybe the current from Azerbaijani? So something that you would recommend to watch?
It's hard to tell. Things are changing. There's a lot in our culture which changes every day, and both in terms of books and films. I would not dare to recommend something from my own taste, but for me, and I mentioned that earlier, the thing which keeps me connected to Azerbaijan perhaps the most is, of course, the music itself,
Yes.
music, and more than anything else. I think I I do I do find almost a quiet place or almost a meditation place in Azerbaijani music. So I think that is something which
Any
which I would really recommend everyone.
is there any specific favorite genre or any compositors that you listen? You have favorites?
My my taste is not that defined. Of course, I would listen to quite a lot, very wide spread of music, and well, I mean, someone like uh, Alim or Fergana Gasimov is outstanding. Unfortunately, recently lost Aygün Beyler'e our element lesson, and of course the Mansum Ibrahim with his team, and but there many others. I mean, there's
Many others.
so many young. I mean, we went together to Midi Yusuf's,
Yes,
and
yes.
I know it's kind of different genre, clearly very different,
Yeah.
but it's unbelievably beautiful music as well. I mean, those Azerbaijani music is both diverse and very widely spread. So I think I would say I can't even name all of them now. I mean, but there are many good performers who I like. For instance, I'll give you something else. When I was in Moscow in 1989, that song was very popular by Atalar, which then Brilliant Dadash was sang. And that was later, was rearranged and became world famous by the Romanians, I think, or by Romanian musicians. That time it was a very strong reminder of home for me. So I mean, it differs. I mean, I could name you many of them, but that probably would not be fair.
But of course, I think there's so many that we don't know. We won't be able to stay in the Hyde Park for quite a long for that. And also, you mentioned about the Mir Yusuf concert. I think it's one of the really, I would say, bold moves to do, because it's you brought someone from a completely new genre, representing new generative music, to the UK. This concert was full. Their capacity was full. People were just enjoying themselves, and everyone was just having the best time. And I think. Uh, I mean, that gave me the feeling you felt what people needed here at the right time. And how do you keep the track with understanding what the community, Azerbaijani community living in the UK needs?
Well, Azerbaijani community was very explicit that they wanted me to use it.
Oh, were they? Sorry, I was not sure if they were. Okay.
But I tell you, one of the interesting things was, first of all, I want to thank the state committee for working with Diaspora and its chairman, Fuat Muradov, for supporting that event. That was very good of them. So basically, I heard many young folks saying, "Look, we want someone like Mir Yusuf." So what we did, we called Mir Yusuf, we asked him, "Would you come?" And he kindly agreed. And then, of course, the Diaspora committee supported it, and it turned out to be a very good project. And one of the things we discussed with both with Mir Yusuf and with Baku on this was that what we wanted to do is to bring young folks, the people who want to enjoy the music, who like his music. It turned out apparently that everybody kind of
Everybody
has
was.
apparently everybody has him on Spotify.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't realize that, but that was and by the way, I got to give him credit. He worked very hard. It was a beautiful performance. It was very good, and I still have some. I still listen to many of his songs myself. So I think that connection with listeners, with guests, was key in that case. So I think it's not that easy, of course, to connect to people what they want, because people have very diverse views,
Of course.
and still, still there's always something that people want we cannot provide, and it's generally speaking not a job of the embassy to organize concerts per se. In this case, we wanted to bring the young folks, the students together, so they have this feeling of connection to Azerbaijan, because they're here. Many of them are living, they're roommates, they're on their own, they're young folks,
Of course.
they need to feel something dear to them, and apparently that was what was needed.
That was amazing. And I also think that they're not just yet. I seen all ages there. I think the goal was the young people, but it ended up being such a beautiful event. And thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm very happy that Yusuf doesn't discriminate
No,
everybody.
no, I think that's just how we are. That's what makes us unique as a nation. And I found out that I knew all songs there.
But I found it too, which was a little bit surprising to me, to be honest. Which don't tell me if I knew all his songs.
Well, I think everyone had a great time. And what are your next for the future? How do you see the connection between the UK and Azerbaijan for 2025? How would you describe it shortly, if you could?
We have a lot of events, be it joint intergovernment commission and other events and visits and all this. And the last year, for the first time ever, the sitting Prime Minister of the United Kingdom visited Azerbaijan. So there's a lot of good things happening between the two countries. But I think it would be very good if community continues to work together and be successful. We have, I think, during the month of Ramadan, inshallah, there will be also Novruz celebration. So we have to make sure that our community does come together for Novruz. It's the tradition it does. And then, of course, there's a May 28th Independence Day, which is extremely important milestone in our history. So we need to celebrate it accordingly. So I think that there are future events and all this, but we're always open to ideas. And I think, but what I also want to see is that our community does organize itself as well. And I have to tell you something else about culture. When you ask me who do you listen to, we have among our community here outstanding, unbelievable musicians. It's just, the quality of musicians here, and I may not know all of them. I apologize if I don't. But for instance, from the Royal Academy of Music, we have Nazarena Shireva, who's just her violin work is unbelievable. Jailer Seydeva, whose violin is just you can listen for days. Sabina Rakcheva, who's a graduate of the Juilliard School in New York, and she's a very well-known master of violin. And then you have Vusala Babar, who's a piano player, and you have Elchin Shirin, who's a great jazz musician. I mean, you just have them here. We have Rafik Merlim from Ardam, who is a quite well-known guitar player, young at heart, by the way, very much so. And I want to especially note two people, Rasim and Saadet Hanıfazi. They're opening, by the way, soon, a music school here, and they've been not just musicians, they've been teaching and involving the young Azerbaijanis into music lessons. And I think this is extremely valuable, that they share and they pass on their knowledge and ability. And they're fun people too, by the way. So I think, I mean, I didn't count exactly, but just think about how many I named now, just musicians here.
Yeah.
And
So that's a huge, that's
that's
a lot. Yeah, that's beautiful. And wow.
and musicians play a very key role in a community. I think I was blessed when I was living in California as consul general. The two people I'm very proud of having met. One is late scientist who I consider to be my very good friend, Lutfi Zadeh, of course a genius, everybody knows him. Fuzzy logic, inventor of fuzzy logic, the person who became a world-renowned mathematician. If you ask me what fuzzy logic is, I'm not smart enough to actually describe it. You kind of understand it when you're next to Lutfi, but then you kind of get confused when you leave his house. And the other person was, of course, late Chingiz Sadekov, maestro, who's at his age, when he was not young, when he would touch the piano keys, the world would change. It was unbelievable. And the way he was the center of community, when everybody would come together just to hear that. I think the people with that kind of a talent, and I see so many talented Azerbaijanis here, younger Azerbaijanis who are that talented, are the very heart of our community.
I completely agree. And I'm sure we'll have more and more.
Inshallah.
And thank you so much for sharing such a memorable memories and your journey. So, Elin Bey, we're coming to the end of our interview, and thank you so much for your dedicated time.
Thank
It means a lot for me. I never ever thought that my podcast will reach that many people, and thank you again for support. It means a lot. So, I'd like to end the interview with my final question. What would be your advice as an Azerbaijani who've been representing Azerbaijan abroad for many, many years? And not just as from the diplomatic perspective, but just as a person. What would be your advice to other Azerbaijanis who are going through the same mission just as an individuals?
I think, thank you, Menachem, first of all, and once again, congratulations on your great success. I think the most important thing for any person is to fulfill her or himself,
Of course.
to be a fulfilled individual. So be successful. That's important, because that success, a personal success of an Azerbaijani person, also means a success in a way for our society, for our country. If you're successful, that means that in a way Azerbaijan is successful, that we have reached some of our dreams. So never hold back from dreaming about becoming more and more successful in who you are. At the same time, do not break that bond between you and your homeland. I've seen some people who are quite advanced in their age when I was in the United States, and all they could, they reached quite a lot. But all their dream was come back to Azerbaijan. I brought you an example of a great thinker, perhaps one of the most famous Azerbaijanis around the world, Lutfizadeh. His last wish was to be buried in Baku. His grave is in Azerbaijan, in Baku, in a Fahri Aban, in a area of honor. That's a strong connection. I mean, I don't think about that element. It's too early, thanks God. But that bond, be proud of Azerbaijan, believe in Azerbaijan, because think about this: for more than 30 years, for 3 decades, people of Azerbaijan believed in justice. They believed that they will succeed, and they have, and they will, inshallah. So I think believing in yourself, believing in your country, being true to the principles of inclusivity, to the principles of Azerbaijan as a society which has been founded on these principles, I think is the most important thing. I mean, and of course, wherever you could help someone from your homeland, do so. Not just from your homeland. Generally, helping people is good, but especially so from the homeland. You know why? Because throughout the years, I'm very grateful to all the people who helped me. You know, the teachers, parents, my family. Of course, I am eternally grateful to President Ali for his trust in me, appointing me as ambassador twice, and as consul general once. But it's most important is to remember that people helped you along the way, help others too, because we've always been, we don't often understand how people help us along the road. It could be a chance meeting, it could be a word, it could be small support. It depends. And we don't often understand how we help others. And I think that also should be something that people keep in mind.
That's beautiful, and that's really meaningful. Thank you, Elin Bey. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
And we are all here as a community, and thanks for bringing us together, and thanks for leading the community in such a great way. It
Thank
means a lot for every single Azerbaijani living in UK, in London, and anywhere else in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Khan, and all the best in your endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.